So Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov just took place, and Rakhmonov won 48-47 in what was a very lackluster and honestly quite a weird fight. I remember a lot of people either thought that Shavkat was going to steamroll Garry or it'd be competitive until Shavkat eventually breaks Garry, but it wasn't that. It was a slow, technical fight that mainly took place against the fence. So let's break it down and why it was such a weird fight. The most reasonable explanation for Shavkat's underwhelming performance is that he was injured. Now, I remember John Anik saying on the broadcast booth, something might have happened to his hand, but DC later confirmed after the fight that Shavkat went into the fight with a torn MCL, and it showed. Shavkat was very reluctant to grapple on the ground consistently. He was, much more comfortable holding against the fence, and you could see in the striking that he really didn't feel comfortable committing with many shots. At the times that he did commit, he landed powerfully, but the rounds became judged off of one or two strikes, which were usually the only strikes thrown in that round other than maybe a few jabs and Ian's knee stomps. So that does, in a sense, explain Shavkat's performance and his reliance on the clinch and why he didn't shoot for the legs up until the fourth round. I remember the commentators were saying, why didn't he do this before? Why didn't he do this before? Shavkat doesn't shoot double legs. It's never been his thing. He's mainly a striker. He's got excellent jiu-jitsu and he's really good at blending his striking into his submissions, but he is primarily a striker and a clinch striker and more upper body wrestling, sort of like Sambo. So, his last few fights where he struggled to get the takedown, people saying, why doesn't he go for the legs? That's just not his style. It's simply not something that he does. And, we can see him struggle to get these clinch takedowns, against Wonder Boy or against Jeff Neal or against Ian Garry. Against Wonderboy, he actually had a really badly broken ankle. It was sort of the reason why he was out for a year, and I think there's a photo online of Shavkat's ankle, and it's just completely swollen. Against Jeff Neal was pretty overweight in that fight. He was a good 2 kilos or 5 pounds heavier. And then against Ian Garry just simply had exceptional takedown defense, and I don't think Shavkat was just very confident in his knee, because he could outmuscle Ian Garry. Plain and simple, he could outmuscle him. So the clinch became his most reliable weapon. And I think also, the thing with teammates, right? Teammates will often have strange, competitive, or lackluster fights, right? Where things will be weirdly competitive in some interesting ways. We see Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Excellent fight, ultra competitive though, where, Burns dropped Usman in the first round. Usman rocked Burns really bad in the second round, and then Usman started to lead with his jab and eventually finished Burns, but it was a really competitive fight. And, Masvidal versus Covington. Masvidal was able to reverse the grappling in some exchanges and even drop Covington, and Covington was able to outstrike Masvidal in moments to, where both fighters kind of looked a little bit off. And this is in part one because they know each other's moves, they know what each other's going to do, so they try to mix it up and do things that they're maybe not used to, but also because that respect is there. Garry and Rakhmonov very much had respect for each other's ability. Garry had respect for Shavkat's power. It was clear whenever he landed that it got a reaction out of Garry, and Garry really wanted to make sure that he didn't walk into the fire too much. That's why he was poking a range with the jab and that oblique kick, which I wish he used more of, but is what it is. And Rakhmonov was very wary of Garry's, counters, as Ian Garry's shown really, really quick counters for a welterweight, like insane speed. So he had a lot of respect for that. It was only really in the third and fifth round where Garry, gritted down and, the third, fourth, and fifth were fairly competitive compared to the first and second, right? Ian Garry started landing high kicks and oblique kicks, but he didn't really want to commit with his punches too much because he knew if he got close, Shavkat would start to grapple. In the fourth round, Garry actually reversed one of the takedowns got almost like a ninja choke, but then Shavkat was able to pass over to the back and hold on, and eventually Garry turned around, got the body triangle from bottom. But Shavkat won by doing a whole lot of nothing. As, like, this isn't a criticism, he won by not doing a lot. And that's because he couldn't do a lot because of his knee. And then in the 5th round, obviously everyone was on the edge of the seat, and Garry had the choke in. Shavkat couldn't really do much to defend or get up because of his knee. He just relied on some reversals. But that's sort of my explanation or theory as to why the fight was so weird. Kamaru Usman perfectly called this, if I'm going to be completely honest. He said that this would be a bit slower of a fight. He said it'd be a bit boring. He said it's not going to be as good as people expected. And, well, what do you know? Good on Usman for that. It's, obviously exceptional welterweight, second greatest of all time. I'm sure he has a great mind for the game. But yeah, good prediction from Usman. A lot of people are saying that Bilal runs through Shavkat, though. I simply don't think that's the case. I think styles make fights, and I think Ian Garry had a really good style against Shavkat, and I think all the factors going to that fight, the fact that they trained before, they had a lot of respect. Shavkat had a lot of things to worry about, and Garry had a lot of things to worry about. I don't think Shavkat's going to have as much to worry about against Bilal. I think Shavkat's style is almost perfect against Bilal, and I really do think he beats him, especially with knees in the clinch. I really do. I think a lackluster performer like this shouldn't take away from the skill set that Shavkat possesses. So I still am standing on the fact that Shavkat will win against Bilal by TKO or submission in the 3rd or 4th round. As we've seen, Rakhmonov's cardio is good. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a slow pace, but he went against Neal and he finished Neal in the 3rd round after an insane pace. He can keep up with Bilal's pressure, and I don't think Bilal is going to be able to pressure him. But yeah, anyway, guys, that was just my explanation of the fight. It was a little bit disappointing, but, happy with the result regardless. I can't wait for Shavkat versus Bilal. And anyway, guys, just enjoy the rest of your day.